The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest room Ambassador Cho Hana had ever seen. Thousands of seats rose up toward a ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness. Representatives from 200 species filled those seats, their eyes all fixed on the small human woman standing alone at the center of the chamber. Hana kept her back straight and her face calm. She had served as Earth's voice in this council for 12 years. She had learned that showing fear only made things worse. High Regent Vorath sat on his elevated throne above everyone else. His gray skin stretched tight over a face that had never shown kindness to any human. His 4 eyes looked down at Hana, the way a person might look at an insect. "The Drokon Empire has brought serious charges against your species," Vorath said. His voice echoed through the chamber. "You have expanded into restricted space. You have violated council law. How do you answer these charges?" Hana stepped forward. "High Regent, I answer with the truth. The Valar sector was given to humanity 30 years ago. I have the original treaty right here." She held up a data disk. "It carries the signatures of this council, including your own." A low murmur spread through the chamber. Vorath's eyes narrowed. Commander Bellix of the Droken Empire rose from his seat. He was tall and covered in dark red scales. His species had always hated humans. They called humanity a disease that spread too fast. "The human lies," Bellix said. "That treaty is a forgery. Everyone knows humans cannot be trusted. They breed like insects and spread like plague. They should have never been allowed into the council." Hana felt anger rise in her chest, but she pushed it down. "I invite any technical team to examine this treaty. It is genuine. The Droken Empire simply wants our colonies because they contain valuable minerals. This is theft dressed up as law." The chamber erupted in noise. Some species shouted in support of Hana. Most stayed silent. They weren't afraid of the Drokans. Vorath raised his hand, and the room fell quiet. "The council will vote on this matter. Those who believe the Droken claim, raise your signals." Hana watched as lights appeared across the chamber. One by one, species voted against humanity. Some would not meet her eyes. They knew they were wrong, but they were too scared to stand against the Drokans. The final count appeared on the central display. Humanity had lost. "The decision is made," Vorath announced. "Earth will abandon its 3 colony worlds in the Valar sector within 60 days. Failure to comply will result in military action." Hana stared at the High Regent. "Those colonies hold 4 million people. You cannot simply force them from their homes. They have built cities, raised families, buried their dead in that soil." "Then they should not have settled on restricted land," Bellix said with a cruel smile. "It was not restricted when they settled there," Hana shouted. For the first time in 12 years, she raised her voice in this chamber. "You are rewriting history to steal from us. This is not justice. This is robbery." Vorath leaned forward on his throne. "You forget your place, Ambassador. Humanity is a young species, a small species. You exist in this galaxy because we allow it. Do not test our patience." Hana looked around the chamber at the hundreds of faces watching her. Some showed pity. Most showed nothing at all. She realized then that humanity had no friends here. They had only been tolerated, never respected. "I will deliver your message to Earth," she said quietly. "But I want this council to remember this moment. Remember what you chose today." She turned and walked out of the chamber. No one tried to stop her. 3 hours later, Hana sat alone in her small office at the human embassy. The building was old and poorly maintained. The council had never given humanity anything better. She had accepted that for years. She had believed that patience and diplomacy would eventually earn respect. She had been a fool. Her communication screen flickered to life. The face of Admiral Park Teho appeared. He was an older man with gray hair cut short, and eyes that had seen too much war. He commanded Earth's Pacific Fleet, and was one of the few military leaders Hana truly trusted. "I watched the vote," Taeho said. His voice was calm, but Hana could see the tension in his jaw. "They didn't even pretend to be fair." "No," Hana agreed. "They didn't." "What are your orders?" She thought about the 4 million people on those colony worlds. She thought about her own daughter, who had moved to Nova Busan 5 years ago to work as a teacher. She thought about all the promises the council had made and broken. "Prepare for the worst," she said. "I don't think they'll wait for the deadline. The Drokans have wanted to hurt us for years. Now they have permission." Taeho nodded slowly. "I'll contact Dr. Kim Yuna. It might be time to wake up our insurance policy." "Do it quietly. If the council finds out what we've been building, they'll attack immediately." "Understood." Taeho paused. "Hana, for what it's worth, you did everything right in there. This isn't your failure, it's theirs." Hana managed a small smile. "Thank you, old friend. Stay safe." The screen went dark. On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Taeho stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked out at the stars. His second-in-command, Captain Lee Min-ho, stood beside him. "Sir, do you really think they'll attack our colonies?" Min-ho asked. "The Drokans have been waiting for this chance for 30 years. They see us as animals, pests to be exterminated." Taeho turned to face his captain. "Contact Dr. Kim Yuna at the Global Defense Research Institute. Tell her to begin Protocol 7. Min-ho's eyes widened. Protocol 7 was humanity's most classified secret. "Sir, are you certain?" "I am. The Council has shown us who they really are. They don't see us as equals. They never did." Taeho looked back at the stars. "We gave them every chance to treat us fairly. We were patient. We were kind. And they saw that kindness as weakness. What do we do now? We prepare. Quietly, carefully. And when the time comes, we show them what happens when they mistake our mercy for permission." Deep beneath the mountains of Earth, in a bunker that appeared on no official map, Dr. Kim Yuna received the encrypted message. She read it twice, then deleted it. She walked down a long corridor lit by dim blue lights. At the end was a massive door made of steel, 3 meters thick. She placed her hand on the scanner and waited. The door opened slowly, revealing a cavern so large it could hold a city. Inside sat 200 warships, dark and silent, waiting for the day they would be needed. That day had finally come. Yuna pulled out her communicator and spoke one sentence: "Begin the awakening." One by one the ships began to glow with power. Humanity's secret was about to change everything. The sun was setting over Nova Busan, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Governor Shin Unji stood on the balcony of her office and watched the city below. Children played in the parks. Families walked along the streets. Farmers returned from the fields with their daily harvest. This world had been empty rock when the first human settlers arrived 28 years ago. Now it was home to 4 million people. They had built schools and hospitals. They had planted forests and filled lakes with fish from Earth. They had turned nothing into something beautiful. And now the council wanted them to leave it all behind. Unji's assistant, a young man named Kwon Tae-yang, entered the room. "Governor, the deadline passed 6 hours ago. We've received no communication from the council or the Drokan fleet." "They're waiting to see if we'll run," Unji said. "They expect us to panic and flee like frightened animals. Perhaps we should consider evacuation. Even a partial one. The children at least." Unji shook her head. "If we start evacuating, they'll see it as admission of guilt. They'll say we abandoned our homes because we knew we were wrong to be here." She turned to face Taeyong. "We did nothing wrong. This is our home. We will not run." "What about Earth?" What about Admiral Tejo? He's preparing, but he needs time. Unji looked back at the city. Our job is to buy him that time. To show the galaxy that humans don't abandon each other. At the military base outside the city, Sergeant Beg Jiho was eating dinner with his squad when the alarms began to scream. He dropped his food and ran toward the command center, his heart pounding. The screens showed the worst possible news. 47 Drokon warships had appeared in orbit. They had come without warning, jumping in from hyperspace directly above the colony. All units to defensive positions, the base commander shouted. This is not a drill. Jiho grabbed his weapon and ran outside. He looked up at the sky and saw lights moving among the stars. The Drokan ships were taking position. His communicator buzzed. It was his mother calling from the city. He answered quickly. Jiho, what's happening? We can see lights in the sky. Mom, you need to get to the underground shelters right now. Take everyone you can find. Don't wait. Jiho, you're scaring me. Please, Mom, just go. I love you. He ended the call before she could respond. He didn't want her to hear the fear in his voice. In orbit, Commander Bellick stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled. The human colony spread out below him like a target on a shooting range. His weapons officers waited for his command. Sir, should we broadcast an evacuation warning? One of his officers asked. Standard protocol requires. Standard protocol is for civilized species, Bellick interrupted. Humans are pests. You don't warn pests before you exterminate them. But sir, there are 4 million civilians down there. Women, children. Bellick turned to face the officer. Are you questioning my orders? The officer looked down. No, Commander. Good. Bellick turned back to the view screen. All ships begin bombardment. Leave nothing standing. The first explosions hit the eastern districts of the capital city. Buildings that had taken years to construct vanished in seconds. Fire spread through the streets faster than people could run. Governor Shin Unji felt her office building shake. She ran to the window and saw towers collapsing in the distance. The sky had turned red with flames. Governor, we need to evacuate, Taeyeon shouted, pulling at her arm. The underground shelters. Get everyone there. They ran through halls filled with smoke and falling debris. Emergency lights flickered overhead. People screamed in the corridors, searching for loved ones, trying to find a way out. They made it outside just as another explosion hit nearby. The force threw Unji to the ground. When she looked up, Taeyeon was gone. A piece of metal had struck him. He was dead. Unji crawled to her feet and kept moving. She had to keep moving. At the military base, Sergeant Jiho and his squad fought to protect the evacuation shuttles. Hundreds of civilians ran toward the landing pads, desperate to escape. The sky above was filled with fire. A young woman fell near Jiho's position, doctor named No So-hee, and she was trying to carry a wounded child. Jiho ran to help her. Get to the shuttle, he shouted. I'll cover you. There are more wounded at the hospital. I need to go back. The hospital is gone. I saw it hit. Jiho pushed her toward the shuttle. You can't help them anymore. Save the ones you can save. So-hee's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. She ran toward the shuttle with the child in her arms. Jiho turned back to face the approaching Drokan ground troops. They had started landing soldiers to finish what the bombardment had started. Squad, hold this line, Jiho ordered. Buy the shuttle's time to launch. His soldiers took position. They were young, most of them barely trained, but they stood their ground. The Drokans came in waves. Jiho shot one, then another. His squad fell around him, one by one. But the shuttle behind him began to rise into the air. 200 civilians were on board. 200 lives saved. A Drokan soldier appeared in front of Jiho. He was out of ammunition. He drew his knife and charged. He never reached his enemy. A plasma bolt struck his chest, and Sergeant Baek Jiho fell. The shuttle carrying Dr. No So-hee and 200 survivors escaped into space. She looked out the window as Nova Busan burned below. Millions of lights were going out, one by one. 6 hours after the attack began, it was over. The Drokon fleet stopped firing because there was nothing left to destroy. The cities were gone, the farms were ash, the forests were burning. Of the 4 million people who had called Nova Busan home, only a few thousand escaped. Commander Bellix recorded a message and broadcast it across the galaxy. Let this serve as a lesson to all who would defy the Council. Humanity has been disciplined. Order has been restored. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, High Regent Vorath watched the broadcast with satisfaction. A regrettable loss of life, he announced to the assembled representatives. But necessary. The humans needed to learn their place. No one objected. No one spoke in humanity's defense. The galaxy watched and stayed silent. On Earth, Admiral Park Tae-ho sat alone in his quarters. The broadcast played on his screen. He saw the burning cities. He saw the bodies. He thought of his daughter who had lived in the capital city with her husband and 2 children. They were gone now. All of them. He had not cried in 40 years, not when his wife died, not when he lost friends in battle, but now, alone in the darkness, tears fell from his eyes. Captain Lee Min-ho knocked on his door. Sir, the council has released a statement. They're calling it a justified action. Tae-ho wiped his face and stood. He opened the door and looked at his captain. His eyes were red, but his voice was steady. Wake them up, he said. Sir, the ships. Dr. Kim Yuna's fleet. Wake them all up. Tae-ho's hands closed into fists. They wanted to teach us a lesson. Now we're going to teach them one they'll never forget. Min-ho nodded slowly. What are your orders? Tae-ho looked toward the stars. Somewhere out there, 3.8 million of his people lay dead. His daughter, his grandchildren, 4 million lives treated as nothing more than a lesson. Tell everyone to prepare, he said. We're going to war. The galaxy expected humanity to surrender. Every news channel broadcast predictions about when Earth would officially submit to the Council. Experts from 100 species debated how many concessions humans would offer. Some betting houses took wagers on how many days it would take for Earth to beg for mercy. Instead, humanity went silent. Every human communication channel shut down. Trade routes closed. Human merchant ships returned to Earth space and never came back. Diplomatic missions packed up and left without a word. The galaxies had never seen anything like it. High Regent Vorath called an emergency meeting of the Council. The humans are clearly planning something, he said. We should send a fleet to investigate. Commander Bellix laughed. Send a fleet? For what? The humans are hiding in their burrows like frightened rats. They know what happened to Nova Busan. They know what will happen to Earth if they resist. Perhaps we should attempt communication, suggested Emissary Tulla of the Veshan Collective. Her species had always been neutral, watching, but never taking sides. This silence is concerning. It could mean they're preparing to fight. Fight? Bellix laughed again. With what? Their fleet is barely large enough to patrol their own borders. They have no advanced weapons, no allies. They are nothing. Vorath nodded slowly. Commander Bellix is correct. The humans are simply accepting their fate. Let them have their silence. They will crawl back to us eventually, begging for forgiveness. Deep beneath the mountains of Earth, the truth was very different. Dr. Kim Yuna had not slept in 4 days. She walked through the massive underground shipyard, checking systems, reviewing reports, making sure everything was perfect. 200 warships filled the cavern, and every single one of them was coming online. Admiral Park Tae-ho stood beside her, watching crews load weapons and supplies onto the vessels. How much longer? He asked. 3 weeks for full combat readiness, Yuna replied. The ships themselves are ready, but we need to train the crews. Many of these systems are new. Our people have never used them before. What about the weapons you mentioned? The special ones. Yuna pulled up a holographic display. It showed a device that looked almost simple, just a cylinder with complex machinery inside. Project Sunbreaker. It's a weapon that can destabilize a star's corona. Not enough to destroy the star, but enough to flood any nearby planets with radiation. Teho's eyes widened. You built a weapon that can kill solar systems? The Drokans built one first. We found fragments of it on a derelict ship 20 years ago. Improved the design. Yuna's voice was cold. They wanted to use it on us eventually. Now we can use it on them. Let's hope we never have to. Yes, let's hope. In a different section of the bunker, Lieutenant Kang Nari ran her pilots through another simulation. They had been training for 16 hours straight, and they were exhausted. She didn't care. Again, she commanded, Formation 7, execute. Her squadron groaned but obeyed. They flew their simulated fighters through a recreation of Drokan defensive formations, weaving between enemy ships, striking at weak points. Too slow, Nari said. In real combat, you'd all be dead. Again. One of the younger pilots, a woman named O Yeren, spoke up. Lieutenant, we've been at this all day. We need rest. The people of Nova Busan needed rest too. They needed safety. They needed mercy. Nari's voice was sharp. The Drokans gave them nothing. When we meet them in battle, we will give them nothing in return. Now, again, the pilots stopped complaining. They understood. Above ground, General Yu Wu-jin coordinated the defense of Earth's remaining colonies. He was a quiet man who preferred planning to speaking. His soldiers called him the Ghost because he could move entire armies without making a sound. He stood in his command center, surrounded by holographic maps of every human settlement in the galaxy. Each colony was being transformed into a fortress. Underground shelters were being expanded. Defensive weapons were being installed. Civilians were training alongside soldiers. His aide, Major So Ji-won, approached with a report. Sir, all colonies have completed Phase 2 preparations. We've hidden supplies for 6 months of siege warfare. Good. Begin Phase 3. I want every colony able to survive a year without outside support. Sir, some of the governors are asking questions. They want to know what we're preparing for. Wu-jin looked at the maps. Tell them the truth. We're preparing for war. Total war. The kind the galaxy has never seen. And if they refuse to cooperate? They won't refuse. Not after Nova Busan. Every human in the galaxy knows what the Drokans did. Every human knows what the Council allowed. Wu-jin's face remained calm, but his hands were tight fists. We will not be caught unprepared again. Never again. In the main shipyard, engineer Hong Do-hyun was putting the final touches on his greatest creation. He called it the Hammer, the flagship of humanity's secret fleet. It was 3 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Admiral Teho came to inspect the ship. Is it ready? Ready and waiting. Do-hyun patted the hull with something like affection. I've spent 15 years building her. She's got Drokan shields, Veshan engines, and human weapons. The best of everything. Human weapons? Do-hyun smiled. Railguns. Simple concept, really. We just fire chunks of metal very, very fast. No fancy energy weapons. No complicated systems. Just physics. He pulled up a display showing the weapon's specifications. One shot from our main gun can punch through any shield in the galaxy. The Council species never thought to develop kinetic weapons. They thought energy was more advanced. And they were wrong? Very wrong. Sometimes the simple answer is the best answer. 90 days after the massacre of Nova Busan, Ambassador Cho Hana boarded a transport ship heading back to Council space. She had spent 3 months in silence, watching her people prepare. Now it was time to break that silence. She arrived at the Galactic Council headquarters unannounced. Guards tried to stop her, but she walked past them like they weren't there. She entered the main chamber during a session, and every eye turned to face her. High Regent Vorath rose from his throne. Ambassador Cho, we wondered when you would return. Have you come to negotiate your species' surrender? Hana stopped in the center of the chamber. She looked around at the hundreds of representatives watching her. Then she looked directly at Vorath. I have come to deliver a message, she said. Her voice was calm and clear. You taught us that the galaxy respects only strength. You taught us that mercy is weakness. You taught us that treaties mean nothing, and that civilians are acceptable targets. Vorath's 4 eyes narrowed. What is the meaning of this? We have learned your lessons well. Hana held up a small device and pressed a button. Every screen in the chamber flickered to life, showing the same image. 200 human warships, more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen, arranged in perfect formation. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted in fear and confusion. Commander Bellix rose from his seat, his face twisted with rage. Hana spoke one last sentence before turning to leave. Class is now in session. Behind her, the galaxy began to understand what it had awakened. The human fleet struck at dawn. Not one attack, 12. Perfectly synchronized across Drokon space. 12 military stations, 12 garrisons, 12 symbols of Drokon power, all hit at exactly the same moment. Admiral Park Taeho watched from the Bridge of the Hammer as his forces tore through the first station. Drokon ships scrambled to respond, but they were too slow. Human weapons punched through their shields like they were made of paper. Station Alpha destroyed, Captain Lee Minho reported, moving to secondary targets. Casualties? Minimal. The Drokons never saw us coming. Taeho nodded. Contact the other fleets. I want status reports from all attack groups. One by one, the reports came in. Every attack had succeeded. 60% of Drokon defensive capabilities were gone in less than 4 hours. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Commander Bellix received the news on his flagship. He stared at the reports, unable to believe what he was reading. 12 stations destroyed. Hundreds of ships lost. Thousands of soldiers dead. This is impossible, he whispered. The humans don't have this kind of power. His officers looked at each other nervously. No one wanted to be the one to tell him the truth. Commander, we're receiving distress signals from the Valar supply convoy, one officer reported. They're under attack by human fighters. Send reinforcements. We can't, sir. Our nearest fleet is under attack as well. We're being hit everywhere at once. Bellix slammed his fist on the console. How? How did they build a fleet this large without us knowing? No one had an answer. Lieutenant Kang Nari led Black Swan Squadron through the heart of the supply convoy. Her pilots moved like dancers, weaving between enemy ships, striking with deadly precision. Target the cargo vessels, she commanded. Leave nothing for them to salvage. Lieutenant, enemy fighters incoming, 30 of them. I count them, all pilots, formation 12. Let's show them what we've learned. The Drokon fighters were fast, but the human pilots were faster. Months of brutal training had turned them into killing machines. They didn't hesitate. They didn't make mistakes. One by one, the Drokon fighters fell. Convoy destroyed, Nari reported to Admiral Taeho. 0 losses on our side. Excellent work, Lieutenant. Return to base for resupply. We hit the next target in 6 hours. Understood, sir. Nari looked out at the debris floating in space. Hundreds of Drokon crew members were dead. She felt nothing. They had shown no mercy at Nova Busan. They would receive none in return. High Regent Vorath called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. His 4 eyes were wide with fear as he addressed the assembled representatives. The human attacks are an act of terrorism, he declared. The Council must respond with unified force. We must crush this rebellion before it spreads. And how do you propose we do that? Asked Emissary Tulla. The humans have already destroyed half of the Drokon military. They have weapons we've never seen before. Ships faster than anything in our fleets. Then we combine our forces. Every species must contribute. The chamber was silent. No one volunteered. Tulla spoke again. The Council authorized the destruction of Nova Busan. 4 million civilians died because of our decision. Did you truly think there would be no consequences? Before Vorath could respond, the main screen flickered to life. The face of Admiral Park Taeho appeared. High Regent, Council members. Taeho's voice was cold. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. Vorath's face turned pale. How did you access our systems? Your security is not as strong as you believed. Nothing about you is as strong as you believed. Taeho leaned forward. I'm calling to give you a choice. Order Commander Bellix to surrender his remaining forces, or we will destroy them. You cannot make demands of the Council. I just did. Taeho pressed a button, and the screen split to show footage of Nova Busan's destruction. Burning cities, falling bodies, children screaming as the sky turned to fire. You watched 3.8 million of our people die and called it discipline. You called it a lesson. His eyes were hard as stone. Watch closely now. We're about to teach you something. The screen went dark. Commander Bellix gathered his remaining forces for a final stand at the Drokon homeworld. He had 50 ships left, barely a tenth of his original fleet. He would rather die than kneel to humans. All ships, defensive formation, he ordered. Protect the homeworld at all costs. His officers obeyed, but he could see the fear in their eyes. They had watched their empire crumble in days. They knew what was coming. The human fleet appeared at the edge of the system. 200 ships, undamaged and fully supplied. They moved forward slowly, deliberately, giving the Drokans time to understand their situation. Admiral Taeho opened a communication channel. Commander Bellix, you have one chance to surrender. Take it. Bellix laughed bitterly. Surrender to humans? I would rather burn. So be it. The battle lasted less than an hour. The Drokan ships fought bravely, but they were outmatched in every way. Human weapons tore through their defenses. Human pilots outmaneuvered their fighters. One by one, the Drokan vessels fell. Commander Bellix's flagship was the last to die. As fire spread through his bridge, he looked up at the human ships surrounding him. He had called them pests, insects, animals. He had been wrong. The Hammer's main gun fired one last shot. The Drokon flagship exploded in a ball of white light. General Yu Wu-jin led the ground forces to Nova Busan. The planet was still burning in places. Ash covered everything. The smell of death hung in the air. His soldiers spread out across the ruins, searching for any survivors. They found none. 4 million people, and nothing remained but bones and memories. Wu-jin walked to the center of what had once been the capital city. He carried a flag with him, the flag of Earth. He planted it in the ashes and stood at attention. Behind him, his soldiers did the same. Thousands of men and women, standing in silence among the ruins. A camera drone broadcast the image across the galaxy, the human flag flying over Nova Busan. Soldiers standing guard over their dead. No words were necessary. The message was clear. Back on the Hammer, Dr. Kim Yuna approached Admiral Taeho with a status report. Project Sunbreaker is in position, she said quietly. We have a clear shot at the Drokan sun. Taeho looked at the weapon display. One button, one press, and the Drokan homeworld would be bathed in lethal radiation. Billions would die. Hold position, he said. We're not going to use it. Not yet. Sir, we want them to fear us. We want them to know we could destroy them whenever we choose. Taeho turned away from the display. But we're not going to become what they are. We're not going to kill billions of civilians just because we can. Yuna nodded slowly. And if they refuse to negotiate? Then we aim it at their sun and let them watch it charge. Fear is a powerful weapon. Taeho looked out at the stars. They'll negotiate. They have no choice now. An encrypted message arrived from High Regent Vorath. He wanted to discuss peace. He was willing to meet Earth's terms. Admiral Taeho smiled for the first time in months. Tell Ambassador Cho to prepare, he said to Captain Minho. She has a council session to attend. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. 3 months ago, these seats had been filled with representatives who laughed at humanity. They had called humans primitive, weak, a lesser species not worthy of respect. Now those same representatives sat in terrified silence as Ambassador Cho Hana walked into the chamber. She was not alone this time. Behind her walked Admiral Park Taeho in his military uniform, medals gleaming on his chest. Behind him came Captain Lee Minho, Dr. Kim Yuna, Lieutenant Kong Nari, and General Yu Woo-jin. The heroes of humanity's war stood together, their faces hard and unforgiving. High Regent Vorath rose from his throne. He looked older than before. The stress of watching his galaxy's balance of power collapse had taken its toll. His 4 eyes could not meet Hana's gaze. Ambassador Cho, he began, his voice unsteady, we are prepared to discuss. Sit down, Hana said. The chamber gasped. No one had ever spoken to the High Regent that way. Vorath's face twisted with anger. But then he looked at the human officers standing behind the ambassador. He looked at the reports on his console, showing the Drokan Empire in ruins. He sat down. Hana walked to the center of the chamber, the same spot where she had stood 3 months ago, begging for justice. She looked around at the hundreds of faces watching her. I remember standing here before, she said. Her voice was calm and clear. I presented evidence of our treaties. I asked for fairness. I asked for justice. Do you remember what you gave me in return? No one answered. You gave me lies. You gave me theft dressed as law. You gave me the deaths of 3.8 million of my people. Hana's voice grew harder. You watched children burn and called it discipline. You called it a lesson for lesser species. High Regent Vorath finally spoke. Ambassador, we must look forward, not backward. What's done is done. We should focus on building a new peace. You do not have permission to speak. Vorath's mouth snapped shut. I did not ask for your opinions, Hana continued. I did not ask for negotiation. I came here to deliver humanity's terms. You will accept them, or you will face the consequences. She pulled out a datapad and began to read. First, the Drokan Empire will pay full reparations for the destruction of Nova Busan. This includes compensation for every family that lost loved ones, funding for the reconstruction of the colony, and a memorial to be built on the planet's surface. Second, humanity will be granted 3 permanent seats on the Galactic Council, with full voting rights and veto power on any military action. Third, the Drokan military will be dissolved. All warships will be surrendered to Earth for inspection and dismantling. The Drokan Empire will be prohibited from building new military vessels for 100 years. Fourth, High Regent Vorath and every member of this council who voted in favor of the Nova Busan action will issue a formal, public apology. This apology will be broadcast to every world in the galaxy. The chamber erupted in protests. Representatives shouted that the terms were too extreme, too humiliating, too harsh. Hana waited for the noise to die down. Then she nodded to Dr. Kim Yuna. Yuna stepped forward with her own datapad. Every screen in the chamber flickered to life, showing the same image. A weapon pointed at the Drokon sun. "This is Project Sunbreaker," Yuna said. Her voice was as cold as ice. "It can destabilize your star's corona and flood your homeworld with radiation. Everyone on that planet would die within days." The protests stopped immediately. "We built this weapon from technology your species tried to use against us," Yuna continued. "We improved it, made it stronger, more efficient." She looked directly at the Drokon representatives. "Right now it is aimed at your sun. It will remain aimed at your sun until these negotiations are complete." Admiral Tejo stepped forward. "Let me be clear. We do not want to use this weapon. We do not want to become the monsters you tried to make us. But if you refuse our terms, if you attempt any form of retaliation, we will have no choice." High Regent Vorat's face had gone completely gray. "You would kill billions of innocent civilians? You killed 3.8 million of ours without warning or mercy," Tejo replied. "We are giving you a warning. We are giving you a choice. That is more than you gave us." The chamber fell silent. Now, one by one, the species voted. Fear made them cooperative. Every single representative voted in favor of humanity's terms. Even Vorath himself raised his hand in agreement. The final count appeared on the screen. Unanimous. "The motion passes," Hana announced. "Humanity accepts the Council's agreement. We look forward to a new era of cooperation." She turned to leave, but a voice stopped her. "Ambassador Cho." It was Emissary Tulla of the Veshan Collective. She had remained silent throughout the session, watching everything with her large, dark eyes. "May I speak?" Hana paused. The Veshans had never voted against humanity. They had never supported the Drokans. She nodded. Tulla rose from her seat and walked down to face Hana. "We thought your kind was weak," she said quietly. "Fragile. When you first joined the Council, we saw your kindness and assumed it meant you could not fight. We saw your patience and assumed you were afraid." She paused. "How did we misjudge you so completely?" Hana looked at the alien woman for a long moment. Then she answered. "You saw our kindness and mistook it for weakness. You saw our patience and mistook it for fear. You saw our mercy and mistook it for permission." Hana's voice was steady. "We gave you every chance to choose peace, every chance to treat us fairly. We asked for nothing more than what was promised to us. And when we refused? When you refused, you showed us what you truly valued. You showed us that the galaxy respects only strength, only power, only the willingness to destroy." Hana glanced back at her fellow humans. "We learned your lesson. We proved we could destroy as well as any species in this galaxy. Better, perhaps. And now? Now we will try to teach the galaxy a different lesson, that strength and kindness can exist together. That mercy is not weakness, but choice." Hana looked around the chamber one last time. "We hope you will learn this lesson more easily than you taught us the last one." She walked out of the chamber, her people following behind her. Admiral Park Tejo stood on the bridge of the Hammer, watching the Drokon homeworld from orbit. The weapon was still aimed at their sun, but he had no intention of using it. The war was over. Justice, or something close to it, had been achieved. Captain Lee Minho approached him. "Sir, Ambassador Cho's shuttle has departed. She's returning to Earth." "Good. She deserves to rest." "What about us? What happens now?" Tejo was silent for a moment. He thought of his daughter, buried somewhere in the ashes of Nova Busan. He thought of 3.8 million lives that could never be restored. He thought of the future his grandchildren would never see. "Now we rebuild," he said finally. "We mourn our dead. We raise our children. We make sure nothing like this ever happens again." "Do you think it worked? Do you think they'll respect us now?" "They'll fear us. That's not the same as respect, but it will keep our people safe." Tejo turned away from the window. Maybe someday, fear will turn into respect. Maybe someday they'll see us as equals instead of threats. And if they don't, then we'll be ready. Always ready. That's the lesson we learned. Trust, but prepare. Hope, but never forget. 1 year later, a monument stood on the surface of Nova Busan. Black stone rose from the ashes, carved with 3.8 million names. Humans from across the galaxy came to visit, to remember, to grieve. Governor Shin Eun-ji had survived the attack. She stood before the monument now, placing flowers at its base. She had lost everything that day, her city, her staff, her purpose. But she had found a new purpose, to rebuild. New cities were rising from the ruins. New families were arriving to start new lives. Nova Busan would live again. Dr. No So-hee stood beside the governor. She had survived the attack, thanks to Sergeant Baek Ji-ho's sacrifice. Every day she thought of him. Every day she tried to honor his memory by saving lives. Do you think they'll ever truly accept us? So-hee asked quietly. The other species, I mean. Will they ever see us as more than a threat? Eun-ji considered the question. Maybe, maybe not. But it doesn't matter what they think of us. What matters is what we think of ourselves. And what do we think? That we're survivors. That we protect our own. We never give up, never surrender, never forget. Eun-ji looked up at the sky, at the stars that had once seemed so full of promise. They thought they could break us. They thought they could teach us our place. But they forgot one thing. Humans are very good at learning. And we always remember our lessons. Across the galaxy, in secret bunkers and hidden shipyards, Dr. Kim Yuna continued her work. Project Retribution had been just the beginning. New weapons, new ships, new technologies were being developed every day. Humanity would never be caught unprepared again. They would never trust the galaxy's promises without verification. They would never mistake kindness from others as genuine friendship. But they would also never become the monsters they had fought. They would offer mercy when possible. They would seek peace when practical. They would be kind when kindness was returned. And for those who mistook that kindness for weakness, the stars themselves would not be able to protect them from Earth's answer.